Good evening and welcome to the 8th of February 2021 meeting of Cabinet. My name is Doug Oliver, Leader of the Council. This meeting is being held remotely and is being live streamed via YouTube.
Send Lisa an email.
That's all right. I'll provide you with the agenda.
Thank you, John. Via YouTube, and the recording of it will be available afterwards on our website. Councillors and officers are reminded to put their mobile phone on silent if they have one near them, leave their cameras on and mute their microphones when not speaking, as this will reduce feedback and background noise and saves a bandwidth to prevent loss of connection. I will first do a roll call to check all the Cabinet members are expected to attend are present. As I say your name, please turn on your microphone and confirm that you are connected, please. So members of Cabinet, Councillor Christine Bayliss.
Yes, connected.
Councillor Jay Brewerton.
Present, connected.
Thank you. Councillor Terry Byrne.
Present and connected.
Councillor Kevin Dixon.
Present.
Councillor Catherine Field.
Present. Could non-cabinet members turn their videos off, please?
Thank you. Councillor Sue Projak.
Present.
Councillor Hazel Timpey.
Present.
Councillor Jonathan Vinehall.
Present.
Thank you. Other members joining us today are not on the committee. Would you kindly type your name into the chat facility so that the officers can pick up that your presence is noted at this meeting? Officers joining us this evening are Malcolm Johnson, Chief Executive, Robin Venard, Assistant Director Resources, Ben Hook, Head of Acquisitions, Transformation and Regeneration, Joe Powell, Head of Housing and Community, Tony Baden, Finance Manager. The Democratic Services Officer, Committee Clerk today is Louise Hollingsworth. Members of the committee will be making the decisions today by a named vote. Louise will call out each member in turn and they will either answer for, against or abstain. Members, please remember to turn on your microphone again at this point. Please turn off again after voting. Those members who wish to speak, please indicate by typing your surname only in the chat facility. Please be aware that there can be a time delay of 5 seconds whilst a member appears on screen. Each item will be reintroduced as we get to it. The two final items on the agenda this evening will be considered in the reverse order as more logical to do so. I would also add that officers Anna Evatt and Rebecca Owen will be joining us at the items 12 and 13 if there are any questions for them. Okay, so if we can move into the meeting, agenda item 1, to resolve the minutes of the last meeting be confirmed as a correct record of the proceedings and will be signed by me, Chairman, at a later date. You all agree?
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 2, Louise, are there any apologies for absence?
No, Chairman, none received.
Thank you. Item 3, Malcolm, are there any additional agenda items?
No, there are none, Chairman.
And item 4, Malcolm, are there any urgent decision items?
No, there are none, Chairman.
Okay, if I can, item 5, disclosure of interest. Members, please indicate in the chat facility if you wish to declare. Please speak clearly if you have a personal and prejudicial and say the agenda item it refers to. Members with a personal and prejudicial interest will be asked to temporarily leave the meeting at the start of the item. Louise will invite the members to rejoin the meeting when the item is finished.
Councillor Vinehall, personal interest in item 11 as Chair Planning Committee, and I will leave at that time.
And there is a note in the chat. I will leave that with others to put their note in the chat and then re-declare when those items come through. I wonder, Martin, could you mind turning your camera off? Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Okay, if we can move forward with the agenda item 6, which is the draft revenue budget. Report of Finance Manager, Cabinet Member Councillor Dixon. And the purpose of the report is to present the draft revenue budget 2021/22 for approval. Robin, is it Robin or Tony that's going to? Thank you, Tony. Nice to see you.
Yeah, and you too, Chair. Thank you. Okay, well,
I'll leave it with you to present the report.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Good evening to everybody, and hope everyone's safe and well. So yes, this is the draft revenue budget for 2021-22. So draw out a few headlines. So Overview and Scrutiny Committee considered the budget on the 11th of January, and the minutes are attached in Appendix E, I believe. Members are requested to agree the draft revenue budget, as Chair has just indicated. So the key points of the report: the net costs of services are now £16.37 million, which is a very slight increase from when the budget was reported to Cabinet back on the 11th of January. It's about £170,000 increase. The budget is summarised in Appendix A, including the revised 5-year forecast to 25-26. And as per the last time we presented the report, Appendix B shows a more detailed breakdown of the budget by cost of service and by department. Appendix D shows a slightly improved position in reserves up until 25-26 from the last time we reported. And members are also requested to approve the special expenses relating to Bexhill and Rye as set out in Appendix C. So members are also requested to approve an increase in the council tax band D of £4.61, which equates to about 2.5%, and the increase takes it to £188.71. And members will note that this increase is within the referendum limits set by the Ministry for Housing, Communities and Local Government. So the government grant settlement, the settlement is actually still draft, as we reported back in January. There have been no further announcements from MHCLG, but we don't expect it to change. And the settlement does include, as I think I mentioned last time, a council tax reduction scheme grant of £146,000. We do have confirmation of the one-off grants for COVID, £519,000, and new homes bonus £272,000. If we just say a little bit about business rates, the council will remain, or is intending to remain in the business pool, the East Sussex business rates pool for 2021-22. And the benefit of being in the pool means that we would benefit from a greater share of any growth in business rate income. However, the flip side of that, of course, is that we're exposed to the risk of a drop in income if businesses close down, for example. And the pandemic has obviously exacerbated that risk. But we have undertaken a risk assessment along with the other councils, which indicates that we can withstand about a 10% drop in income without an adverse impact on our money. Similar, or by the same token, I guess, if the Ministry for Housing, Communities and Local Government decided to extend the business rate relief schemes that they introduced this year in response to the pandemic, then the risk that I've just outlined is substantially reduced. And furthermore, and a little bit sort of off the cuff of this, the Bank of England have recently made some quite positive noises about the pace of the economic bounce back. So we feel that the decision to remain in the pool is justified on the basis just laid out. So if I just take members to some of the highlights in the report, so paragraphs 9 to 11, that explains the impact of capital, the capital programme on the budget. That's subject to another report on this agenda, which I'll be introducing later. And the council's capital programme, suffice to say, it will have a major impact on the revenue budget. We have laid this out before to members, the impact being in terms of additional borrowing costs, but similarly, we will also hopefully generate additional income made from the property investment strategy schemes. Members will note that the use of revenue budget to fund capital expenditure has gradually reduced over the 5-year period to about 130,000 by 2025-26, and that's substantially lower than what we have in the budget for this year. Paragraphs 12 to 16, a little bit about the final draft budget, just to remind members that the budget does include risks. I know I've gone over them before, but I will just quickly reiterate them again because it is worth saying. There's the unpredictability around the demands of homelessness. There's the issue of delivering savings, stroke additional income or efficiencies. via the Financial Stability Programme, and there's a little bit in the report in paragraph 22 about that, and the achievement of targets within the corporate plan, and of course the ongoing impact of COVID. So there are risks to the budget. That's not unusual. There are risks to every budget, but I guess this year they're probably, or next year should I say, they're probably more accentuated than they normally would be. So reserves rather in paragraphs 16 to 17, we're looking to use some 3.3 million this year to balance the overall budget, and that includes 0.6 million to fund capital expenditure. The forecast position at the end of 21-22 is about £7 million balance in reserves, although this is subject to the 2021 final outturn figure. Obviously, the reserve, because the 2021 budget is also partly funded from reserves. Any variances in that will impact on the balance going forward, shall we say. We expect reserves to reduce to just under 4 million by 2025-26, and of course, if the risks that I mentioned a few seconds ago, if they materialise, then this would probably reduce the balance even further. However, on the positive side, if we can achieve those efficiencies and savings by 2025, we could be looking at making a small surplus to return to reserves, which obviously would put the council in a stronger position. Budget consultation, Chair, just to quickly finish off, the consultation with taxpayers and businesses closed on the 18th of January, and the results of this is shown in Appendix F, and I believe members have already seen a copy of that. So that's it from me. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much indeed, Tony, for bringing all this together. It's a very difficult time. Uncertainty hasn't changed. There are many questions that we haven't the answers for, but the here and now of it is that we have prepared this with what we know, and the position, I think, irrespective of where one sits at the moment, could be an awful lot worse. Other questions coming forward? If I can invite. There's no members of Cabinet that want to speak at this stage, so I invite Councillor Charlie Clark. Are you still out there somewhere, Charlie, with your microphone on, please?
Sorry, I had a bit of a problem there. Yeah, not so much questions as much as an observation. £188 is about 11% of the total council tax bill that we presented to the residents, and considering we operate over 50 services for that, and we're operating with about 25% less staff than we were 5 or 6 years ago, I'm very comfortable with what we're offering the residents. I think it's important to note that we are a democratically elected body, but the police committee has decided to impose a £15 increase on the council tax this year, which is because the government some years ago said they could put on their own precept. So that's a vast more amount than what we're asking for. Also, we have the county council budget meeting tomorrow, which will our proposals, which we will be discussing tomorrow. So I think it's very important that the residents of Rother do realise they do get value for money from Rother, and I'm very comfortable with what's been proposed. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for bringing those points out, Charlie. Councillor Paul Osborne. Paul.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, as you know, we went through the budget at scrutiny a couple of weeks ago, and most of what we said is on Appendix E, as Tony said. I think it's worth me just mentioning a couple of points there that sort of come out from there, sort of worth mentioning. We welcome the additional COVID funding from government, although we could argue that it wasn't quite enough. New homes bonus also helped us out to a degree. Worth mentioning the reduction in the borrowing costs. The Public Works Loan Board, their cost went down by a percentage point, which saved us a fair lump of money, actually, so that was useful. We also were supportive of the 2% put in the budget for staff wage increase potentially, We don't do that until September, but it's nice to have it in the budget, especially with the way the staff have been working over the last 12 months in these difficult times. And one thing we were slightly concerned about, and Robin brought it up, was the reduction in the base of properties. We're down potentially, I think, about 518 properties on our sort of base register, where people no longer have to pay council tax due to their incomes reducing. And that was a sort of a possible little worry that we may have there going forward. But if the economy sort of picks back up, then that won't be the point. So that was just a little concern we had that was highlighted by Robin and Tony, but the rest of it we're pretty happy with. So yeah, we're fine, thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you, Paul, for those observations. Any comments, Tony, to go back on those, or are they as said?
No, not really, Chair. I mean, Councillor Osborne's quite right about the PWLB interest rate point. I've tried not to repeat myself over various meetings, but it is a significant change for us, and so he's quite right to point that out. With regards to the council tax base, yeah, we feel it's a prudent figure to use. Again, I think Councillor Osborne is right. It is about 518, I think, was the estimated reduction. You know, who knows? But he's drawn out some very pertinent points, which are reflected in the overview and scrutiny minutes. I can't really add anything more to that, Chair.
Thank you, Tony. Before I ask Councillor Kevin Dixon to sum up, Councillor Brian Drayson wants to make a comment regarding to the police precept, as member of the Police and Crime Panel responsible for setting that precept.
No, thank you, Leader. It was just actually to make a note on the interests, as Councillor Clark had referred to it.
Okay, fine.
Thank you.
Okay, fine. If I can invite Councillor Kevin Dixon to sum up this report, move, and then if I can invite someone to second it. I think I've got a note here, so yep. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, and just in case there's any confusion, this report was updated and the current report is on the website. If you have a paper copy of the agenda, that is the old report. So just to be clear, the recommendation to Council from Cabinet is that the council tax for 2021 at Band D be increased by £4.61, which is 2.5%, and not as printed in the original agenda. It's sad that we can't even really talk about a 0% rise this year with all what's gone on. It would have been a very nice thing to do, but our finances at the council just do not allow that. I know a number of parish councils are proposing a 0% precept this year, which is very, very commendable. But unfortunately, our financial position is such that we can't consider that. Thank you to Councillor Clark for his comments, and I think they are very, very well put, that our part of the council tax, the total council tax takes, is only that amount, 11%. I'll take his word for that amount, and that others are going to contribute much more to this increase. We are limited to £5 or 2%, whichever is the higher. And you'll see that the £4.61 is put on us because we have to allow for special expenses. Hopefully special expenses will diminish next year. The reduction of borrowing costs that Councillor Osborne mentions has made a big difference. And I've been speaking to Mr. Venard about the possibility, while these rates are really low, of maybe borrowing in advance, but that's work in progress. And the reduction of the council tax base is a worry, but it has been factored into our budgets. So we're not over promising anything on that. But I think, as Tony said, the Bank of England report this week said that we would bounce back quickly. And if we can bounce back quickly, that will be reflected in a higher council tax base. So thank you, Chairman. I recommend to Council the four recommendations on the agenda, with that one note that the council tax at Band D has changed from the original printed report.
Thank you for that, Kevin. Councillor Timpey, are you looking to make a comment, or are you looking to second this report?
No, I'm just going to second. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. If we could then please, Louise, take a vote.
Thank you, Chairman. Okay, members, I will call your names out alphabetically. Please reply with for, against or abstain. Councillor Bayliss.
For.
Councillor Brereton.
For.
Councillor Byrne.
For.
Councillor Dixon.
For.
Councillor Field.
For.
Councillor Oliver,
4,
Councillor Prochak,
4.
Councillor Tempe,
4.
and Councillor Vinehall.
4.
That's unanimous, so carried, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Louise. And I think we can just add here, there are no projected plans to cut any services, looking at job losses in any way at all. We've put together this budget. I know that Kevin has been working very closely with Robin and Tony on this. And thank you for the work that you've put together, which is obviously at a very difficult time for us all. But I think the whole reports do make interesting reading, and there's enough there for us to be fairly optimistic that we're actually moving forward as we would want to. So thank you for that, Tony. And if I can invite you, Tony, to lead on the agenda item 7, which I think is always a really quite a exciting one for those that can understand it. The Treasury Management Strategy Statement and Annual Investment Strategy for approval. Yeah, I'll leave that with you, Tony, if I may.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm looking forward to this one. So yes, the Treasury Management Strategy and Annual Investment Strategy report. There are 2 documents set out in appendices A and B, and members are requested to agree both. I should point out at this stage that there's the next item on the agenda is the Capital Strategy report, and there's a lot of overlap and repetition between the 2. But it is necessary, because if you take the reports in isolation, it adds context. So you do need to the repetition and the overlap is necessary, I'm afraid. So the appendices include lots of information, includes a statement of our what's known as acronym known as minimum revenue provision, or the MRP. And this is how much the council must statutorily set aside from its revenue budget to repay debt. And naturally, we've factored this into the 21-22 revenue budget. And indicators set down. This is also reflective indicators that are set down in the relevant CIPFA codes. So the strategies are required by a wealth of things, really, but most importantly by the Local Government Act 2003, so it's a statutory requirement. MHCLG have guidance that they expect us to abide by, and CIPFA's Prudential and Treasury Management Codes. All these documents encapsulate the requirements of the 2 strategies. So it does seem like a lot of regulation. It is a lot of regulation, but the guidance and codes are aimed at safeguarding council's assets whilst obtaining minimum or maximum rather investment returns, and ensuring that the council has a properly financed and robust capital strategy. And it's worth just pointing out to members, and I'm sure they're aware, history has caught councils out before. We've had Icelandic banking collapse and events like that. So these documents are crucial. So whilst it may seem a bit cumbersome, they're very important as well. So paragraphs 7 to 10 of the report that mentions the capital strategy. I won't dwell on that too much at the moment, Chair, because I'll pick that up in the next item. But again, happy to take questions if there are any. Paragraphs 11 to 12, a little bit about Treasury management. So Treasury management essentially is made up of 2 elements, both are which are covered in the Appendix A. And the management of the council's cash in a way that enables it to invest in low-risk investments, but whilst ensuring that there is enough money in the bank to pay the everyday bills and to pay salaries and so forth. That's one major thread of Treasury management. And the other one, as I mentioned a few seconds ago, is the funding of the capital programme. Now, we do report the Treasury management, we do report Treasury management activity every quarter to Audit and Standards Committee, before it then goes on to Cabinet for approval. So that also picks up a mid-year review and an annual review. So members are kept informed of what our activities are. And again, this is in line or in meeting the requirements of the various statutory requirements and code requirements. Just say a little bit about training. CIPFA code requires that members involved in Treasury management or with responsibility for Treasury management receive adequate training. And I think that came off the rails a little bit because of the pandemic this year. But we aim to do this after the May Council meeting once Audit and Standards Committee membership has been formally agreed. There is a mention in there for Link Asset Services. We continue to use Link Asset Services. I think they provide a very good service for us for the amount of money we pay. And whilst our decisions have to be our responsibility, it's always good to have expert advice at hand to aid us in our decision making. Some more sort of highlights, I guess, from Appendix A, if you can call them that. So paragraphs 9 to 10, they summarise the council's capital spend plans and funding sources over the next few years. And as I say, that will be picked up in the next report. Paragraphs 11 to 15 reflect our borrowing need, and it's often referred to by the acronym CFR, which stands for Capital Financing Requirement. And to try and put that in very basic terms, the capital financing requirement is basically it's a running total, if you like, of how much capital expenditure has not yet been paid for. So if members were to look at Table 10, the borrowing figure there, they will see that it increases the capital financing requirement in Table 14 in the same measure. And the capital financing requirement, it's not allowed to increase indefinitely, and that's where the minimum revenue provision, which I mentioned at the beginning a few minutes ago, the CFR reduces by the annual minimum revenue provision charge that we make. So paragraph 16 shows the proportion of our income spent on borrowing costs, and that forecasts out over the 5-year forecast, and it peaks in 2022, 23, 24. And this is not surprisingly due to the size of our planned capital investment. And then you'll see that it gradually decreases as the new property investment strategy income streams kick in from new schemes. So paragraph 19 illustrates exactly the same sort of thing, really, except a proportion of, or it takes borrowing costs as a proportion of council tax income. As required by the CIFA Code, paragraphs 21 to 23, that summarises our minimum revenue provision policy, which is basically to repay loan debt over the same period as the asset life. Now, the people or members with a involvement, a more deeper involvement in finance, may well recognise that that's quite a similar concept to depreciation. So it works in a very similar way. So borrowing costs, we've outlined those in paragraphs 24 to 28. And again, as I say, the level of debt will increase significantly as the size of the capital programme increases. And paragraphs 29 to 32, they set out our approved borrowing limits. And again, these are a requirement of the CIFA Prudential Code. And the council cannot exceed these limits. We have to work within these limits. We cannot exceed them. We can reset them, but they have to go through members for approval and authority to gain authority to do so. You'll see that there's two limits. One's an operational limit and the other's an authorised limit. And the operational limit is pretty much what it says on the tin, I guess. It's that's the limit of borrowing that we work within. The authorised limit just gives us a little bit of headroom should we need it, but we've not been in that territory to date. That's it, Chair. That's all I can say about the report, and that's as interesting as I can make it, I'm afraid. But if there's any questions, I'm happy to try and take them.
I think you did a very good job there, Tony, and it sounds as if you know what you're talking about. So thank you very much indeed. I sincerely hope that there are questions that may come forward. Any members of Cabinet would like to ask a question at this stage? No, so I invite Councillor John Barnes.
Thank you, Chairman. I congratulate Tony on an extremely lucid presentation of what is very difficult territory. I wanted to ask a question, first of all. I've got a couple of questions about our property investments in financial management. My memory is not necessarily serving me very well, Leader. But I thought we were going to have slightly more than the 8 million we've got invested in property funds. At one stage, we seem to be thinking about 10 million around that. I see it's intact at the moment. I'm taking it that our policy towards reserves will not eat into those sums, because we're actually getting a very good return still on those investments. So that's my first question. Do you want to take that one separately from the other?
I can step in now if you like. Sorry, Chair.
Please, Tony, that'll be sensible, I think. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So no, the 8 million has been 8 million for a while now, Councillor Barnes. So yeah, that's all I can say to that. But no, at this point in time, we're not looking to necessarily eat into those property funds to prop up the revenue budget, so to speak.
I think that's reassuring, Leader. My other question, it's a presentational point, I suspect, but I was very interested looking at paragraph 10, that at the moment we have a very large sum of 25 millions unfunded. Is this simply a descriptive term because we haven't yet actually gone to the PWLB or whatever source we go to? Because clearly that will need funding if we're going to actually meet all the requirements of the expenditure side.
Yeah. Sorry, I can't actually see the reference to that, Councillor Barnes. I think you're referring to. Are you referring to Alliance Rother Homes?
No, if you look at paragraph 10, it talks about the sources for funding, external sources, nearly 13 million, own resources, just over 812,000, borrowing 23 million, and then it says unfunded 25 million.
Yes, sorry, thank you. Sorry, it would have helped if I was looking at the right paragraph 10. I was looking in the body of the report rather than the appendix. But it actually, the 25 million, that does refer to the Alliance Rother Homes. It's in there because it's an intention, but we because it hasn't yet, there's been no formal decisions around what's going to happen in respect of the various schemes that may come out of Alliance Rother Homes. That's why we put it in there as an unfunded at the moment. So it's pending further debate and consideration by officers, members, and decisions by members as well.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, John. No other questions, I don't sense. No, there's not. So, Kevin, if I could ask you to sum up and move this report.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Going on Councillor Barnes's point, I quite agree with him about the Hermes and the CCLA funds that we've got, which have produced very good returns for us with very little activity and input from us, which is good. I've spoken to Mr. Venard about this, and it's all about managing the cash that we have in the council at any one time, and everything will be done to make sure that we don't disturb those funds, because A, they give a very good return, but secondly, that if we had to cash anything in, we would take a hit on our investments. So it's wise to keep them as all the time as we can, as long as we don't need to call them, and providing we don't have any more pandemics, I'm assured that should be the case. Apart from that, Chairman, I'm just happy to move the recommendations to councils 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 as printed in the agenda.
Thank you. And have someone to second that, please?
I'm happy to second that, Councillor Vinehall.
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. If we can go to a vote on this, please, Louise.
Thank you, Chairman. Okay, councillors, I'll call your names out alphabetically. Councillor Bayliss.
4.
Councillor Brereton.
4.
Councillor Byrne.
4.
Councillor Dixon.
4.
Councillor Field.
4.
Councillor Oliver.
4.
Councillor Prochak.
4.
Councillor Tempe.
4.
And Councillor Vinehall.
4.
That's unanimous and carried, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Louise. If we can move forward onto agenda item 8. It's report of Finance Manager to present the draft capital strategy and updated capital programme for approval. This is agenda item 8. Right, Tony, it's the floor is yours again.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. So yes, so the capital strategy for 2021-22 to 25-26. That's what, as you say, that's what members have been asked to agree, and the updated capital programme. The strategy is a requirement of the SITFA Prudential and Treasury Management Codes, no surprise there, and members will be able to see that laid out in Appendix A, and the detailed capital programme is shown in Appendix B. There's a lot of information again in this report. I won't go over everything in there, Chair, because we will be here for a long time, but I'm happy to take any any questions. There is, as I say, there's a lot of overlap with the Treasury Management Report, a lot of repetition. Members will have spotted that, no doubt. The strategy gives us an overview of how capital and Treasury management activities makes an important contribution to the provision of public services. So I think these are very important documents, and the programme shows that intention, if you like, at a more detailed level or detailed by project level of what we're going to do. Just to mention a point that Councillor Osborne mentioned during the discussion on the budget, the PWLB lending. I will repeat that now. the Office for Debt Management, or the Debt Management Office rather, announced last November that they would reduce borrowing rates by 1%, which does make the programme that we're proposing much more affordable for us. However, we cannot borrow to fund what is known as debt for yield projects. So broadly speaking, and a lot of authorities have done this, we can't go out and buy a site just for financial gain, if you like. We're confident that none of our schemes, either previous schemes or future schemes, fall into this category, but we will continue to seek legal advice to ensure that we stay within that rule, because if we don't, then we can't take advantage of the lower lending rate. So the capital programme, it's in total, it's over £186 million over the next 5 years, although about 80 million of that is, as I've just explained a few minutes ago in the previous item, about 80 million refers to or relates to Alliance Homes, and that will be subject to further work and approval. About £60 million of the programme relates to our property investment schemes, which will hopefully bring us a big revenue return, and other larger schemes include things like Blackfriars Housing Development of about £11 million. Appendix A sets out further information of how the capital programme is developed and financed in terms of, if you like, governance. And there is, as I say, quite a lot of overlap with the previous report. But it's important to keep it in there because it is, I hope anyway, it's adding context. So the asset management is an issue that's picked up in the strategy. The council manages its assets so that we can get as much life, if you like, out of them as we can. And when an asset is no longer, if an asset is no longer required, we can sell those on, and those receipts can be used either to repay loan debt or to finance other asset purchase. We don't get a lot of these as a rule, though, to be honest, and as members will see from the table, we're not expecting multi-millions of pounds worth of asset sales. So borrowing, the rates are currently very low, as I'm sure members are aware, and they're likely to remain so in the medium, possibly longer term. So now is a good time to borrow, and those discussions will continue going into the future. Paragraph 13, that summarises the forecast debt position over the next 5 years, and I think, as I've already said before, that position does increase before it reduces. Just another sort of technicality for members to sort of be aware of: our debt must be lower than our capital financing requirement. That's a condition, that's a statutory condition, and the table does show that is we expect to achieve that aim, if you like. A little mention about another liability that the council is responsible for, and that's the pensions deficit. Most councils have a pensions deficit. I should think most do. Again, there's nothing new there to report to members. It's just in the report for completeness. And just a final word, I guess, going back to the investment in commercial property. Members are already aware of the strategy. I know it's designed to support economic sustainability and regeneration. And I should have mentioned this earlier. This is why we feel that we won't fall foul of the PWLB requirement not to borrow for debt for yield purposes. So sorry, I should have mentioned that earlier. And that's it, Chair. That's as much as I want to say at the moment. Again, happy to take questions.
Thank you very much for that, Tony. I think it's very interesting to look at the debt to yield on the basis that where we have invested funds, these have been within ROTHR, where we've been able to maintain the revenue from those properties, providing jobs in the district as well, and resisted the temptation to go up and down nationally, as many local authorities seem to take that particular route. So, and I think it's also interesting to see the housing development schemes that are coming forward and our commitment to provide housing. So I think these are very interesting figures to look at. If there are any questions on this, are there any members of Cabinet that would like to? Christine, did you put a note up earlier on, I believe? Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. And I'd be very happy to second this when it's proposed. I just wanted to say that on Annex B, it sets up the table of capital investments, and I'm really, really pleased to see that quite a number of the sort of schemes are coming forward for regeneration. If the schemes that we've got there for Beeching Road all pan out exactly as we hope, it should be a complete regeneration of that particular area, and I think for the better. But the thing that I'm quite excited about is the highway works in London Road, which is item number 29, and that will fit very nicely with another agenda item that's coming up, which talks about how we're going to regenerate part of the town hall site, not the town hall itself, obviously. And then I just wanted to finish off by saying that it's really wonderful to see that the investment in Sidley Sports Ground is coming forward. I've declared an interest in this, a non-pecuniary interest in this issue, but myself, I've been working with Bexhill Lions for a long time to bring this scheme together. We've been very lucky that we've got Councillor Brewerton on board, and of course Councillor Coleman and Councillor Carroll from Sidley. And this is going to be a transformation, I think, for young people's opportunities, sports opportunities up in Sidley. So brilliant stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine, for those comments. And I think we're all quite excited when you look at these projects that are going forward, that this really is really what we were wanting, this administration was wanting to do, and pick it up and run with it. Councillor Coleman, Sam.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think Councillor Bayliss stole my thunder a little bit there. But obviously when Sidley comes up on an agenda, I'm always really pleased to speak, and this is no exception. I just wanted to really, absolute testament, not just on the Sidley project, but I'm sure on all of the other projects, to the dedication of staff that we've managed to have so many wonderful things going on during this pandemic. I know I've been watching quite closely the Sidley Sports and Recreation Ground project, and Rebecca and Anna and all of the members of staff involved have worked tirelessly from home quite often because of the pandemic, throughout the difficult circumstances, whilst also juggling all of their new responsibilities and changes of job descriptions and stuff. And it's just been an absolute testament to how incredible our staff really are.
Thank you for those comments, Sam. Jonathan, you'd like to make a comment before I ask Kevin to sum up, please?
Very quick one to Tony. I'm not sure if you'll have the answer because it's a bit specific. In Appendix B, at the funded by, you've got CIL at 806,000, and I'm trying to reconcile it because I know the Sidley Sport has got 192,000, and the Highways Works in London Road is 300, which adds up to 500. And I was just wondering where the other 300,000 is in here, because I can't see where that is. I can't see anything that would be that I believe is funded by SIL that's there. That might be too much of a detailed question for you this evening. If it is, please, we can pass over and you can come back to me later.
Apologies. I nearly got there, didn't I? I apologize. Robin is interjecting.
Robin's
so
coming
may
to
remember.
What do they call it? Phone friend, Tony. And here he is. So
the 50-50 button, Chair.
Yeah. Well done, Robin.
Chairman, I think it's the payments to the parish councils for their SIL element.
Oh, I see. It's like a balancing figure. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That sort of more or less make up the difference. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Yep. Okay, that got you off that one, Tony. Kevin, would you like to sort of sum up and we'll move forward on this?
Thank you, Chairman, and I'd like to thank Tony in particular and Robin for the past 3 reports. An awful lot of big chunk of work in one cabinet meeting, but all done very well. I'd just like to point out that investing in this district is not just about the yield and the money we make from it. It's one of the very big important factors, obviously, but it's also about homes, jobs and prosperity of the local economy, which is what this administration wants to do. And I think it's all summed up very well in the conclusion, paragraph 11 of the main report. I would encourage everyone to read that, and that is the aim of this administration. We know that there's risk there. I'll take out the word significant risk. I think there is risk, but it's very important that as a cabinet and as a council that we are aware to those risks and manage those risks and make sure they don't derail us from what we want to do. So I'm very pleased, Chairman, to recommend to council numbers 1 and 2 as printed in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think we've got a second, Councillor Christine Bayliss. Thank you very much. Yes, it does give you a lot of satisfaction when you look at this, because we're bringing things forward and we haven't gone externally and funded projects in other parts of the country like Cleethorpes or Hull or Leicester or some other far-flung place, which I know other authorities have attempted to do. If we can take a vote, Louise, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, councillors, please respond with for, against or abstain. Councillor Bayliss.
For.
Councillor Brereton.
For.
Councillor Byrne.
For.
Councillor Dixon.
For.
Councillor Field.
For.
Councillor Oliver.
For.
Councillor Prochak.
For.
Councillor Tempe.
For.
And Councillor Vinehall.
For.
That's unanimous. So carried, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Louise, and thank you, Tony, again for producing pretty, very concisely these rather chunky reports. And I think members would acknowledge the fact that you made it really quite as clear as you could in a very difficult area. So thank you very much indeed for that.
Okay.
If we can move on to agenda item 9, development of a local lottery to support community funding. This is a report of Head of Service Acquisitions, Transformation and Regeneration, which will be Ben Hook. If I could just add here that, when we identified the issues that were going to be ahead of us as an administration with funding, we went to officers and we put all the ideas on the table to say which of these could work, what should we be looking at. And thanks to the efforts of Councillor Prochak, we have brought this report to forward this evening. So perhaps, Ben, you could lead on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I mean, to second your comments there, this report wouldn't have come forward were it not for the drive of Councillor Prochak doing all of the background research and bringing it forward for us. With regards to the community lottery, so we've been looking for some time to make the community grants scheme far more sustainable. At the moment, it is funded from reserves and therefore in the longer term possibly not sustainable. So we're looking to drive up opportunities to generate income. Rother District Council has a very long record of working with the voluntary sector. And helping particularly through not only through the community grants but some of our other specific grants, helping the community centre organise and mobilise. Local parishes obviously benefit greatly from the community grants and have funded a number of schemes throughout the district over the years. So the local lottery is basically an opportunity for both Rother District to generate some income which we could offset against the community grant scheme, but also for local voluntary sector partners to be involved in that process and help them generate funds for their own activities directly. What's being proposed is that there are two main options. Either we look to establish our own sort of in-house operation. This can be both costly and risky, because we'd need somebody to run it, we'd need resources, plus we'd need setup costs to get the technology in. Or we can look to appoint an external lottery manager, which effectively buys in the service for a small percentage of the take, depending on what arrangement we eventually go for. And we're some members were invited to see a presentation from one of the potential operators, explaining how the basis of this system works. Effectively, what they do is they do most of the promotion. They provide the technology for the sales, and we bring on voluntary sector partners. RVA, Robertsbridge Helping Hands, other such partners out there who are working hard in the community, can sign up to this, can promote it within their communities, and will help generate sales and will benefit financially from that as a result. Obviously, we've got a social responsibility and a sort of a licensing issue here as well. So just to be clear, obviously, we will need through this process to ensure that the checks and balances we have in place mean that nobody underage is able to access the lottery, and our lottery management system will help achieve that, although it will remain our responsibility. So therefore, we will need to nominate somebody from the officers to be that responsible person to ensure that the processes are in place. Other than that, I bring back up to the recommendations, which is to recommend to council that a lottery be established, and then it be resolved that the income generated from that lottery be directed, the income coming into Rother District Council be directed towards supporting the community grants scheme, and that the head of service, myself, be granted the necessary delegated authorities to initiate the lottery management system under the ELM proposal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ben. If I can invite Councillor Kevin Dixon and then Councillor Vinehall to be followed by Councillor Barnes and Councillor Drayson. Thank you. Kevin.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Hook referred to the fact that the community grants currently are not funded and are funded from reserves, and that's backed up by Appendix B from our last report. 130,000 every year is removed from reserves. This is something we've inherited. It's something that's not sustainable. We cannot be using reserves like this forevermore, because reserves will run out. So this is the first step in trying to address that. We are absolutely committed to community grants in one form or another, and this is the first part of funding the community grants on a regular basis. We recognise that this will not actually cover all of the community grant money that we want, but it is a start. So on that basis, I'm very happy to support this initiative. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Kevin. Jonathan, Councillor Vinehall.
Thank you. Yes, so I saw the presentation done by the outside provider who have done a number of these, and I was singularly impressed. They know what they're doing. They make it very straightforward, yet keep control with us. Fantastic scheme. I really hope that the Grants Committee will include towns and parish councils as part of the VCS group, because I think they've got a lot. One, they need to generate as much money for themselves towards projects, and it's a fantastic way of doing, and they can connect with their communities very well, and it helps that connection as well. So absolutely supportive of this, but that would make it even better. I think it's a real step forward.
Thank you for those comments, Jonathan. And I've got Councillor Christine Bayliss.
Yes, thank you. Just to say that I support the recommendation. I was at, I'm part of the Community Grants Committee, so I know that the fantastic work that they do, the money that's provided, has maybe it's small amounts, but has a really big impact. I mean, I think it's obvious to everybody that this money is coming out of reserves, has been for a number of years up till now, and that's got to change. And yes, I've thought thought through all the various different options, and this seems to me to, especially in terms of the small grants, this seems to me to be a good solution with plenty of safeguards in around, that if anybody is worried about encouraging gambling and those sorts of side effects, this is not going to sort of turn us into sort of scratch card Bexhill or Rother. So yeah, no, I absolutely support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. If I can invite Councillor John Barnes, then Councillor Brian Drayson, and then finally Councillor Mooney before I invite Councillor Projak to sum up and move this report. John.
Yes, I won't comment on the gambling aspect. There will be people worried about whether this does encourage what is a growing problem of gambling. But I am, and I declare not an interest, but I do have watched small lotteries in operation in my own village, supporting the village halls, in supporting Rye Harbour Nature Reserve. So I'm well aware of actually their advantages, but also they are not that costly. I really found it quite interesting reading this paper that we are talking about, if we did it in-house, spending something like a six-figure sum. Frankly, we're not going to get that number of takers. The Rye Harbour scheme has 700 takers. It is run effectively by one person with one machine. I wonder where these costs are coming from and why we are going to an external provider. Frankly, I believe we could do this very cost effectively in-house, and that would maximize the profits to our own services and to the grants. So if we are going to do it, can we look seriously at whether we are not trying to spend far too much on an over-elaborate computer system? Because frankly, at the end of the day, on the sort of 1,800, 2,000 takers, which I think you're hoping to take, that actually could be handled at minimal cost in-house, and we would have more money for good causes and for lottery grants.
Thank you for your comments, John. I can invite Ben to come back on those because I know he's done extensive work in looking at all the options, making referrals to other local authorities that have either set this up historically or are about to. Ben, if you could just rest assured Councillor Barnes's concerns.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we've done a lot of research into this. I mean, this is, I mean, the costs put on this are also based on the fact that we have nobody in house with the capacity to take on such a project like this. So we would require additional staffing, which is part of, you know, as it was always the issue, staffing costs money. But with regards to the other small lotteries that you see in and around the district, I think quite often they do actually use an external lottery management system, but it's, you know, it's bought in and it's easily operable by a single member of staff or volunteer within a particular location. Obviously, what we're trying to do with this system is make it as accessible as possible across what is quite a substantially large geography throughout the district, and so you know, in order to do that on you know, from a single authority perspective, I think would be quite costly, because we'd have to make sure that there were either machines everywhere or some sort of technology. But then, of course, you've got the ability to check people's identification and so on and so forth. So this whole package is bought in at not a significant cost. It's done on a percentage of ticket sales, and therefore, you know, with a small upfront fee. So therefore, it's you know, it's significantly less risk for the council as well. So, you know, if you look at the tables that were provided later down in just after paragraph 18, you know, I mean, the sums that we're talking about here are not vast. We're not going to be earning a mint out of this. This is going to be a small contribution towards the community grants in the early years, and hopefully some additional money for the voluntary sector. So I think to go out on our own and set up something so large will be costly and a great risk, and I think it will probably cost more than we'll get back in the medium term. Whereas this way gives us a small outlay and guaranteed returns for those tickets that are then purchased.
Thank you for that clarity, Ben. I hope that allays any concerns that you had, John. If I can invite.
I fear, Leader, it doesn't allay my concerns. We're looking at 1224 people. The notion of putting machines all around the district seems to be just the kind of over-elaboration which local government is guilty of. And it seems to me we are about to spend a lot of money, or pay a provider to spend a lot of money, which is unnecessary on those sort of numbers.
Okay, well, thank you for the comments, John, and appreciate your concern on that. May I invite Brian Drayson, Councillor Drayson?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I was just going to speak briefly from the point of view of the community. I'd never really heard of a community lottery until this appeared on the agenda. But in that period since, I've joined the Swindon's Lion Club in one of their virtual meetings. And Swindon in Wiltshire runs a community lottery, and the Lions sign up for it and are over the moon with the fact that they don't have to run their own lottery, and they can all sell tickets through their own little charities, but their members have a chance of winning a much bigger prize. So around Rother, the opportunity for smaller charities to actually join in, I think, is to be welcomed. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Councillor Martin Mooney. Martin.
Hello, thank you, Chair. Yes, I have to record my disgust at this. Frankly, the community is the community. We owe them something. It's nice to give them something back, these projects that are being developed by them for the benefit of the community, and to pass it on with lottery money is almost obnoxious. And it's not the work of the council to raise money by gambling anyway. So I'm totally against it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for those comments. Some will agree and some won't agree. Councillor Paul Osborne. Paul, are you there?
Yeah. Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I sat in on the presentation, obviously, and I was impressed, to be honest. Especially like the idea that there's no. I think it's worth mentioning there's no sort of risk to the council because the prizes are covered by insurance by the provider, which is useful because I think the chap did say that one of the first draws of one of the new ones they set up, someone won 25 quid in the first draw, 25,000 in the first draw, which, if we'd done that, you'd be getting a bit of a kicking before we'd even started. So it's worth mentioning that insurance covers the prizes which the provider deals with. The prizes are reasonably modest, a maximum top prize of £25,000, which is enticing for people, but you're not looking at millions of pounds sort of life-changing figures. There's no risk to the council as such, so that's welcome. And it's not going to, as has been mentioned before, it's going to provide some funding towards community grants, which I would welcome. And the community grants, I'm a great fan of that. It really does boost everybody across the whole district. An hour 130,000 can quite easily turn into £600,000, £700,000, £800,000 by the time everybody else has put their money in. So that really is a good sort of seed corn start to projects. So I don't have a problem with this. But would it be worth mentioning we have got a set up cost, and would that be worth making that as part of the resolution, sort of a maximum up to a maximum fee? So it got just for a bit of clarity, maybe. It's up to you. I'm not a cabinet member, but just a thought. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for the support on this, Paul. I think it is something which many local authorities are now doing. It really is part of their armoury in generating income. I've got Councillor Sam Coleman, and then Kathy Harmer, and then Eleanor Kirby-Green. Unless there's anything further to add to this, I'd like to push on. So I'll let those three make comments before I invite Councillor Project to sum up and move to a vote. Sam.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Sorry, my microphone was playing up. I think it's unfortunate that the sort of disappearance of government funding towards community groups and community projects has led many councils to have to look at schemes like this. That being said, I think this is probably the best way we can ensure that community grants are secure going forward in the future. The one thing I just wanted to ask is whether someone from the Anti-Poverty Task and Finish group could be consulted in some way in regards to the sort of ethical management of the scheme to make sure that it's not disproportionately targeting people in poorer communities who obviously can sometimes be more vulnerable to sort of gambling addictions and the things that go along with that, just to make sure that it is ethical and it is safeguarding against that.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure that'll be noted by Sue. Kathy Harmer.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say I think it's a fabulous idea, and I'd like to thank Sue sincerely for putting a lot of work into it. And I can instantly think of dozens of organisations and community groups that will benefit from it. In terms of cost, it's always better, I feel, to have a percentage of something that rather than nothing from a bigger thing. And to take it out of house, it's going to free up our guys who are working hard as it is to do other stuff. So I'm really excited about it, and thank you sincerely for everybody that's put work into what was an aspiration a little while back.
Thank you for that, Kathy. Councillor Eleanor Kirby-Green. Eleanor, thank you. I can't hear you at the moment, Eleanor.
Apologies. A couple of things to note. Firstly, it's been referred that community grants was funded out of reserves. They have been allocated reserves, so that's slightly different. I think the two things that I would say is that I'm just concerned that St Michael's Hospice, for instance, runs an extremely successful lottery, and I just hope that this new lottery doesn't sort of encroach on the other successful lotteries that already happen across the patch for charities. And I also think that I personally think it's a little bit odd that taxpayers will be funded. So basically, using taxpayers' money to pay someone to administer a lottery, which I find, slightly strange, and I'm not sure how taxpayers would necessarily feel about that. I think that I agree with John. I think it should certainly be run in-house, and I think that the community grant scheme should be funded out of council money. Because the only other concern I have is that obviously if you buy a ticket or whatever, if you engage with the St Michael's Hospice lottery, your money's going to St Michael's Hospice. The issue here is, I think, for individuals in Rother, they obviously don't have any power over where the money's going. So you can buy a lottery ticket, but you don't actually know which good causes it's going to. So I'm not sure whether that would necessarily put people off.
Okay, well, thank you for that. If you've been at the presentation, you can actually elect and identify where you want your contribution to go to. So that's, yeah.
Can you? Right.
Yeah, indeed so. Okay, I think we're at the point now, really, Sue, if you can sum up and move forward on this. Thank you very much.
I'll try. Yeah, the starting point, as has been said, was the unsustainable, and Robin has said that at the end of every report on community grants, that this is not sustainable. So it's this kind of lottery, the community lottery, the charities and societies, schools even, is run up and down the country. And the presentation we had, they had about 80 lotteries they were organising. They gave an example of the first one they did, which was Vale, and that was because of the pressure on budgets. And their first online got 40 good causes. So as we've said, there'll be a lot of organisations that will be very, very happy to sign up for this. They have overwhelming customer satisfaction. And if you want to look at Lewis and Tunbridge Wells and Eastbourne in our near neighbours, they have lotteries. The question of could we do it ourselves? I've looked at this and a lot of questions about that, but there is absolutely no way we could afford to do it because of the risk. They take absolutely all the risk. The ELM, the External Lottery Management Company, they take all the risks. And Paul Osborne, Councillor Osborne, gave a very good example of somebody winning 25,000 in the first draw. They also take over all of the banking, all the transaction fees. They have a dedicated phone line. They run the site. They give players support. They do all the marketing. So and it's all based on Rother. And as has been said, the good causes, you have to write criteria for good causes, and that's in our hands. That's our power. and we vet the good causes. So that's all in our power there. So all the bespoke materials they will produce. The thing is that as well, if you're concerned about the actual gambling, the Lottery Commission regard this kind of lottery as the safest. It's classed as low risk. I mean, this is sort of at the end of tombola or raffle. They've done research on it, and they have shown that actually people don't impulsively buy a ticket because you don't immediately get the reward. So there's no incentive for attracting gamblers that may be vulnerable. The other thing they do is they put the maximum at 20 tickets. So if somebody is actually buying 20 tickets, they will go back to that somebody and just check out what's going on there. So that is the strongest safeguard that you could have. So they've got procedures and systems to mitigate the risk problem. I've looked at other councils that have been running them, and you're right that it won't answer our problem for community grants totally. We've got to find other ways of doing that. So I think it's interesting, Councillor Drayson actually pointed out that he'd just come across a community lottery that was actually really popular, and everybody was delighted with actually, because we know with our community groups how difficult fundraising is, especially now. I mean, it's absolutely awful. I hope I've covered everybody's concerns. I think if you are anti-gambling full stop, I would ask you, have you ever bought a raffle ticket? Because it's that end of gambling, and this will help us. And it's not Rothes taxpayers' money, it's residents' money, and they choose to actually support the good causes. They did a bit of research on who actually the players were, and it said that the 65% of the players were in the A and B groups, and 17% were in C1 and C2 social group. Also, the majority of players were 50 to 60 years old. So, I mean, it's a different kind of animal from what you see where people get caught up in gambling. I hope that reassures everybody. It would be good if we'd actually been able to say, go ahead and choose the ELM so we could have a presentation at full council. Because if you had a presentation, I think you'll be able to ask the questions that you feel need answering and that maybe concern you. But I'm happy to propose it, very happy.
Thank you very much, Sue. I think Kevin would like to make a comment before I ask whoever it is, Jonathan, to second this and we move forward. Kevin?
Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of points to pull out of a couple of things that's been in the chat. The top prize of £25,000 isn't paid out from the takings. That is insured against. So if anyone won the £25,000, the ELM operator actually insures against anyone getting that, so it doesn't distort the takings, because £25,000 prize might be more money than's taken in a week in the lottery. So that part is covered. And that they also said that anyone who buys more than 20 tickets in a week will be spoken to about their gambling. So there is effectively a £20 ticket limit on people taking part, unless they can explain they're part of a syndicate or anything like that. So there are checks and balances in place. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Kevin. Sue has moved this. Jonathan?
Happy to second it. Thank you.
If we can go to a vote, please, Louise.
Thank you, Chairman. Okay, councillors, please respond with for, against or abstain. Councillor Bayliss.
For.
Councillor Brereton.
For.
Councillor Byrne.
For.
Councillor Dixon.
For.
Councillor Field.
For.
Councillor Oliver.
For.
Councillor Prochak.
For.
Councillor Tempe.
For.
And Councillor Vinehall.
For.
That's unanimous
right.
and carried, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed, Louise. And I think there's a couple of things I'd like to add on here. I think we've all seen how the National Lottery has transformed civic and the voluntary sector over the years. And I think that this is going to be nothing quite like the National Lottery, but, it's really geared to the community, what we're looking at. And I would really like to thank Sue on this, because she's taken this on board when we were in a situation where we drew up a short list of putting things, or a long list as it were, how we could generate additional income for this authority. And people went away with these ideas, researched them, looked at them, and have come back. And thank you, Ben, and your team for bringing this report together this evening. If we can now please move on, and thank you, Sue, move on to item 10. Right, item 10 is inviting Ben Hook, Head of Service Acquisitions, Transformation, Regeneration, to installation of a hybrid meeting system for the council chamber. I think this is all part of bringing Rotherham into the 21st century. I think we've seen all the benefits of running remote meetings, not only for committees, but also for our training events and communications. So this is really the next step forward. Ben, if I can invite you to present where we are on this.
Well, I couldn't have introduced it much better, Chair, so thank you for that. Yeah, this is obviously a recommendation for Cabinet to consider allowing us to install a hybrid, what's known as a hybrid meeting system within the council chamber. So obviously, prior to March last year, all of our committee meetings were held in person in the chamber, and if you wanted to speak at those meetings, you'd have to be in the chamber with as part of the meeting. Obviously, the law was changed as part of the response to COVID-19 to allow this environment in which we sit now, and for people to make democratic decisions in a virtual environment. We don't know if that's going to continue once the pandemic has sort of come to an end, and that's down for government to decide. We do know that it's going to expire in May, and so from then we may end up back in the chamber. However, what would be very helpful is if members of the public who have engaged with us through the YouTube channel over the last year could continue to do so, and this is something that we haven't been able to do in the past. So this system will primarily allow the public to be able to engage with the committees continued via the YouTube with cameras being installed, but also, it will enable virtual speakers. So planning committee, for example, just taking an example, if you had an architect who wished to speak on behalf or against a planning application, they would be able to do so virtually rather than having to be in the room with the rest of the committee. And non-decision making members would also could be able to contribute to meetings without having to come all the way into the town hall and the chamber. So this gives us a lot of flexibility. Whether the law changes or stays the same, it will enable both members of the public and anybody else who may be required to attend a committee to engage with that committee in an entirely different way. So we've put in a budget of about £70,000 to be allocated towards the installation of this system. This will cover the full installation cost and including a license purchase for 3 years, at which point we can take a review and consider whether or not we would like to continue in that vein or maybe use a different technology going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ben, for bringing that forward. If I can invite Councillor Catherine Field. Catherine.
Yes, thank you. I very much support this report. I think over the last 10, 11 months, the vast majority of people have got used to meeting like this, and most of us, I believe, feel the benefit of it. I think a hybrid system is a good idea. There are undoubtedly large meetings when it's quite useful to see people face to face, and which I think for some people they're quite difficult to manage remotely. But for briefings and training sessions and small little meetings, then this really is the way forward. To begin with, we save an awful lot of money on travel expenses if we're not travelling as a council, and we do know that we need to save money. We also have declared a climate emergency. We will save an awful lot more emissions if we don't have to be driving to and from the town hall. So I can see nothing at all against this, except I have a very slight niggle that we may just be creating a two-tier authority. I hope it won't happen, but I do worry that those that can easily walk to the town hall because they live in Bexhill will continue to do so for social reasons, and the rest of us who live in the rural areas and really don't want to spend half an hour plus in our cars might be a little bit excluded. Having said that, hopefully we will leave lockdown permanently next time we leave it, and the way we conduct our social lives will be very different and will help to compensate for meeting remotely. So yes, please go for this.
Thank you, Catherine. Jonathan?
You only have to look at the numbers to see how this has really opened up the council meetings to the community, whether it's full council, cabinet, planning, or quite frankly any other meeting. How many people would we normally get in the chamber? Just a smattering, even for some big issue, it's probably no more than 50 or 100. In fact, I don't know what the chamber can take. It can't take that many. And here we see these people engaging. So in terms of making ourselves a more transparent, more accessible council, this is excellent. In terms of our own meetings, in terms of the formal meetings, I agree with Catherine, but I'm sure that there will be an incentive for those of us who live in the rural areas to come to the town hall to engage in meetings as and when they feel it's absolutely needed. So if they really want to have a voice in a particular discussion, they will come. Those who may not want to have a strong voice may wish to participate from home, particularly if there's a long way to travel. And I know my mileage bill for this year will be about a 12th what it was in the previous year, and that is a saving in itself and a lot of less pollution. So yes.
Yeah, so many advantages. Take someone like Tony Baden, who lives in Brighton, to have come out on an evening like this, to have been at work and then travel all the way home. It's just so practical. Jay Brewerton. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. I want to reflect some of the points that Councillor Field and Councillor Vinehall have just stated. As an alliance, when we started, we promised honesty and transparency, and the fact that our local community can actually engage with us. I met with the technology company 15 or so months ago, and the software platform they have is absolutely superb. There's a number of features and functionalities that we haven't even delved into, but it will mean that we can have a more interactive experience with our actual residents. So that in itself is actually very, very important. Going forward, ensuring that we're more agile and flexible in working and how we work. I know myself, I haven't submitted a single expense bill since last March, and I'm sure many other councillors are in exactly the same boat. So hitting the actual climate emergency, reduced travel, there's a number of benefits this will actually give us, and I'm very, very much for ensuring that we do spend this. I know the 70,000 may look a lot, but it's actually a 3-year contract. So if you break that down, it's just over £20,000 a year that we're going to be paying for the system. However, the key benefits it will give, which is essentially reduced expenses, will pay for it several times over. So, I would like to actually second this item, please. Thank you, Councillor Oliver.
Okay, thank you, Jay. If I can invite Councillor Sue Project to be followed by Councillor Sam Coleman and Councillor Paul Osborne, and then if there's anything new to add, we will then take a vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sue.
I mean, I've got nothing new to add because the points are so well made in terms of all the other things that councillors have already mentioned. I just wanted to mention that actually I hope if we go to hybrid system that there will be flexibility, that we'll assess the effectiveness of it, that kind of thing, so that if there is a two-tier system developing, we can actually assess whether that's good or bad, whether it's effective or not effective in decision making. Also, I feel very, very strongly that it should not be the government deciding whether we carry on or not carry on May the 7th. It should be totally up to us. And I know that our MP is sympathetic. Our MPs are, well, I don't know about 2 of them, but one of them certainly sympathetic to that we should be deciding for ourselves. Sure. So I would support this. Thank you. Oh, I did want to mention one. Sorry, I forgot to mention. Actually, in terms of member development training, it's been much more effective, and attendance has been better.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Sue. Terry, are you going to add a gem of wisdom here?
Not a gem of wisdom, but a comment on the dangers of having a two-tier council. I think we've all seen recently that two councils using the same technology, ourselves and a certain parish council up north, one, you had constructive and well-attended and well-conducted meetings. The other, you had absolute shambles. So it's not just the technology. It's the way in which we decide to implement it. And I think officers have done a very good job so far in providing us with a meeting protocol. I think all chairs have found it useful, and it's still evolving. Do we use hands up? Do we use chat? Whatever. But it's not just the technology. Its effectiveness will be governed by the way in which we move forward with a proper meetings protocol, which may be different for full council and committees. But our track record in comparison to other people, having looked at other meetings, is very good so far, and I'm confident we'll make good use of the technology, and it'll enhance our meetings at all levels.
Thank you, Terry. I think I would commend all members to embracing this, and officers. It's the way that we have taken this and worked for openness, transparency, for all the right reasons. Before Sam Coleman and Paul Osborne make a comment, Malcolm would just like to make a comment. If I can invite you, Malcolm, to make a comment.
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, just to actually A, endorse, but B, give reassurance. I think members are quite right to be concerned about a two-tier setting in this, and I think that is one of the concerns of this system. But I think if we look back to the concerns of when we introduced all online meetings, coming up for a year ago, and how we've evolved and changed over that, then I think it's quite right to highlight it, and we just need to keep that under review. I think the other thing, and again, Councillor Prochek has made this point, but I think it's well worth repeating, is that there are numerous other meetings that go on, irrespective of what the government decides to do, that are non-decision making. They may be training, they may be meetings between officers and members, they may be whatever, but where this sort of system will be invaluable. And I think as we move forward, given our commitment to zero carbon and reducing that, this is a very tangible approach that we can make, and a very tangible decision that we can make that makes a very clear statement of our commitment and reinforces that commitment. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for those comments, Malcolm. And yes, we have lobbied with via the LGA for the government to give the decision locally to local authorities, because some of them would have a different set of circumstances. Councillor Sam Coleman.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I remember sitting in the public gallery and ironically filming the previous administration when they voted against having cameras in the council, and I'm sure that's what Councillor Osborne might be touching on when he speaks, as he came across from my filming in that particular meeting. But I have two questions really. The first one is, I don't know if Ben or Malcolm or anyone know this yet, but what kind of is it going to be cameras on each individual? Is it going to be a sort of a room camera, a 360 camera? Do we sort of know that detail yet? And also, are there any measures that are sort of being looked at in terms of ensuring parity between those who are online and those who are in the room, aside from possibly employing Jackie Weaver?
I don't know whether or not this is a comment to be made now. The mechanics of how the meetings will go. Ben, is there any sort of quick comment on that?
Just to say that we're looking at, obviously no final decision's been made as to what system we're going to go with. We have to undertake a procurement mechanism, however we do that, and we'll make sure that whatever system is installed meets those requirements, gives a balance between those who are online, those who are in the room, and also making sure that those who are in the room are visible from wherever they may sit.
Thank you for that. Councillor Paul Osborne, then we'll go to a vote, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I won't say I come a cropper, but I probably did. But anyway, I think it's worth saying, sort of 2.5, 3 years ago, I wasn't keen on the cost of the setting up and the license fee for the recording of the meetings, because, you know, to be honest, at the time, probably 3 people a month or 3 people a meeting, maybe watching it, and it was sort of going to work out at sort of 60, 70 quid per person in a license fee alone for them to watch our meetings. Obviously, things have changed, and to be perfectly honest with you, on a snowy Monday evening in February, I'd much rather be in my office and spending an hour and a half driving backwards and forwards to Bexhill. So, I'm fully supportive of this. I've still got a slight gripe over Bill Gates or whomever gets a license fee to add to his already vast fortune. But like you say, times have changed. I've not put in a fuel claim since March of last year either. My car sits in the garage more times than ever, which is fine. I expect the battery's probably flat. So yeah, I don't have a problem with this at all. And I like the idea that we won't be editing, I'm sure, our contributions.
Well, Sam won't be editing it, Paul, that's for sure.
I hope he won't.
Yeah, well, thanks for your support on that, Paul, and it's nice that we, you've come round into the modern way of conducting meetings, and it's very much appreciated, your involvement. Okay, so I think we've got to a situation where on this I would look to move this report. I believe Jay has seconded this report, so I think we can go to a vote. Louise, if you're still with us.
Yes, I am. Thank you, Chairman. Okay, councillors, please respond with for, against or abstain. Councillor Bayliss.
For.
Councillor Brewerton.
For.
Councillor Byrne.
For.
Councillor Dixon.
For.
Councillor Field.
For.
Councillor Oliver.
For.
Councillor Prochak.
For.
Councillor Tempe.
For.
And Councillor Vinehall.
For.
And that's unanimous, Chairman.
Very good. Thank you for that. And thank you, Ben, for all your research in bringing this report to us this evening. It was something that we did look at some 15 months ago, and various other things then overtook us. But I think we've all seen the real benefits of how this can make us become a more efficient operation. So thank you for that. Now we're on to agenda item 11. Of which will be brought forward by Ben Hook, Head of Service Acquisitions Transformation. And I believe that there are members of this Cabinet that will now leave us, as they effectively have an interest in this item as being members of the Planning Committee. Louise will let you out and she will let you back in. I think those that remain are those that I was expecting to remain. Yep, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yep, thank you. Okay, so this is a report that Ben will lead at this moment in time to present the outline business case for the enhancement of the Town Hall site. With a view to gain approval for progress to detailed design and full planning application submission and allocation of appropriate funds. So this again has come from the fact is that this pandemic gave us an opportunity to, it was a wake-up call. We needed to look at where we were, we needed to reset, and we looked to go forward and take opportunity. And this was the message that was given to the senior management team to explore all the opportunities where we could generate income, further income with efficiency and deal with some of the other issues that are out there as part of this administration. A significant amount of preparation work's been done at this stage, but I really would like to identify that this is an exploration to go forward, to look at all the benefits that are there, which come in from very, very many sides. I'll leave that with you, Ben, if I may, because I know you've prepared this report with members, and thank you for your help.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, this the the town hall in Bexhill is one of our key heritage assets, and as a council we've always understood that, and this is an opportunity not to disrupt that or to destroy that heritage aspect in any way, but a way of we're seeking a sort of way to save that, along with providing the council with the appropriate workspace it needs. For anybody who's ever been into the sort of the officer quarters, if you like, of the town hall, it's not what you would consider to be a modern office environment. It can be a bit of a rabbit run, and it's not particularly fit for purpose as we move into a modern age, both in terms of what employees could expect, but also in terms of attracting new staff and so on and so forth. It's also the town hall itself, being over 120 years old, the main core section has undergone a number of dodgy additions, let's say, over the years, with some add-ons that haven't truly respected its heritage and history. So, in short, what we're looking to do with this paper is allocate a budget that will enable officers to go away and develop up some more detailed proposals. We've done some high-level feasibility, and we sort of understand where the levels are in terms of what sort of quantum of development can happen on the site, both in terms of residential or new office space, and it's about sort of translating that into a design that's acceptable in planning terms, which is a key thing. It is affordable to deliver, because I think whatever we build will either need to pay for itself either through sales, if we build some sort of residential in the back of the site, or in terms of income to cover borrowing costs, in terms of being able to let out office space to other partners. There has been a significant interest from a number of other public sector partners who would look to take on space. Obviously, we already have a number of partner tenants in our Amherst Road building, and speaking with them, they would also be interested in any new accommodation that we might create. So this is the first step. Really in getting to that plan. We will be seeking to work with planners and develop a design that sits comfortably with members before taking it through the planning system, and then coming out at the back end with a detailed design, a full business case and financial impact study, which we can then bring back to Cabinet for any decision before development takes place. So I just want to be clear about what it is we're proposing here. We're not proposing anything specific at this stage, other than to go away, do the design work, make sure it's acceptable in planning terms, bringing it back to Cabinet and most likely full council before any development actually takes place. So people will have the opportunity to comment on any future designs that may be undertaken at that time. I hope that's all the information that members will need to make a decision on this. Obviously, with the report, happy to take any questions, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Ben. I think this fits alongside the way staff have identified through the survey, the way that they want to work differently in the future. This is a legacy and a reset of this pandemic to a certain extent. I think it's a very exciting project that we need to be looking at for all the right reasons. If I can invite members of Cabinet, Catherine Field, please.
Yes, thank you. This is a wide-ranging but very timely report, I believe. And I do think, with my environmental hat on, we need to really think carefully how we manage our own estate. And this gives us a huge opportunity to make sure that this building, which is a heritage building and an iconic heritage building, really, it's part of the town. It is our opportunity to make sure that it is environmentally sustainable and isn't leaking heat and emissions into the atmosphere. We've declared a climate emergency, as I will continue to say, until we become at least zero neutral, if not zero negative, which is where we need to be. So it is a good thing from that respect, but actually, as importantly, is the conditions our staff have to work in. Now, I know the recent survey said that 60% are happy to work at home for some or all of the time, but in fact, those that are working here not at home need to be comfortable and have modern, up-to-date office spaces. I was genuinely shocked 18 months or so ago when I found two senior officers sitting on the stairs having a chat. I made some glib remark and they said This is the only space we have to meet. Well, that really isn't good enough, is it? In the 20th century, let alone the 21st. So I believe this is our opportunity to do the right thing by our staff and the right thing by the environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Councillor Terry Byrne.
Thank you, Chair. What I'd like to really point out is the breadth of what I believe is the breadth of vision. All right, it's only an outline at the moment, but where we could have just concentrated on the working environment of our own staff and the town hall, we're looking at an overall site which contains commercial property and domestic property, residential property. And I think this is the really imaginative bit, because if we get this right, then in the long term, this is really going to be revenue neutral. For the money we are expending to make the working lives of our staff better, also taking into account the environmental aspects, then that money is no longer a loss if we capitalise on the commercial property and the residential property that we're putting in. It also means we gain, though again I stress this is only outline, 14 units, 14 residential units, which will be modern, ergonomically designed, environmentally friendly units, residential units in the town. And we are really short of decent accommodation in Central Bexhill. So I think for part of the regeneration project, I think this element is really welcome. So it's not just the town hall, it's the breadth of vision. And I think Ben and his team need to be congratulated for bringing forward a really imaginative scheme. And I look forward to the way it will develop as we work this up into a real detailed plan. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Terry. If I can invite Councillor Christine Bayliss, I think a lot of this fits into the East Sussex proposal for the road changes in the Town Hall Square and into a plaza area, and perhaps Christine can touch on that at the same time.
Yes, I mean, I'm not going to repeat what Catherine and Terry have said. I mean, I absolutely wholeheartedly agree about the benefits of meeting the climate change target, and also increasing the number of homes in Central Bexhill. That really important. I wanted to touch on a couple of points around, first of all, the regeneration of the Town Hall Square itself, the actual traffic bit of Town Hall Square. So East Sussex County Council are coming forward, and it has been delayed because of COVID, but they are going to be coming forward with a new scheme which will significantly enhance that whole area in front of the town hall at the moment, and that will be sort of like built into something like what I suppose you describe as a sort of plaza type facility. The most important thing here is, and I think it's a bit unfortunate, it was the paper was actually called a town hall redevelopment proposals, because obviously we're not proposing redeveloping the town hall, we're actually proposing keeping it and enhancing the town hall and the chamber. And I think those are really, really important points to make. But also this is, this is about our staff. We know that we have real issues around recruiting, say, planning staff at the moment, and that causes significant problems for us. I mean, I don't know if we've done the research about why it is so hard to recruit staff, but I would suspect that anybody coming for an interview to Bexhill Town Hall complex, when they've got options at other local authorities in modern, up-to-date working conditions, we're obviously going to be at a disadvantage. The final thing I'd say is about post-COVID regeneration, and I don't normally quote our Prime Minister, but Mr. Johnson does like to talk about building our way out of the COVID crisis. And I think this is a sort of like excellent project. Doing this is going to make jobs for local people in terms of, building doing the rebuilding. and this can only be a good thing. This, you know, is absolutely the ideal time to do it, and I hope that you know, the plans and everything that are going to be developed as a result of tonight's recommendations and proposals to council can go forward. And you know, again, I would like to thank Ben and the team. Really great job, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for those comments, Christine. And I would just bring members' attention to paragraph 10 and paragraph 15, because that really just covers off exactly what we're trying to get out of this. Right, before I invite Councillors Barnes, Cortell and Osborne, Malcolm would like to make a couple of comments. Thank you, Malcolm.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to build on the comments that have been made already, but you know, we shouldn't forget the economic development or the economic benefits of having a large number of people in the town centre. And one of the things that we as a council need to focus on post-COVID is how we regenerate and re-innovate, if you like, or energise our town centres. And I think that this proposal works very well towards that in keeping people in our town centres. And don't forget the proximity that building has, or that site has, to the railway station, which is very attractive for people to be able to travel, not using their cars, and actually get there. And I think, you know, the other thing just to make is that, you know, we've discussed at length about how COVID has changed the way people will work. And I think the proposals that Ben and his team have worked up are actually helping us to actually develop that and to move that forward, and to give our staff a quality work environment, but to give them a flexible work environment, which is precisely what we're trying to do, and across a range of other organisations. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for those comments, Malcolm. I'll invite Councillor John Barnes, then Councillor Paul Cortell, and then Councillor Paul Osborne, before Kevin will sum up and we will go to a vote. John.
Leader, there's much in what has been said, particularly I think really by you and by Catherine Field, with which I agree, which makes it all the more startling, I think, that this hasn't gone through overview and scrutiny first. I think in some ways we're also a little premature, because at the end of the day, we don't yet know what the post-COVID working setup is going to look like. When I looked at I started off very favourable to this, and then I looked at, first of all, the option appraisal, and I was startled. I have never done an option appraisal in the National Health Service, in local government, or in my own academic establishment without scoring it. And there is no score here. There's not an option appraisal as I understand an option appraisal. And suddenly at the end of it, we pluck one option out of the 5. It's an attractive option, although I think in selling it, when you say it's central, it is central to Bexhill. I'm not sure it's central to Rother, but leave that on one side. We're putting on a back burner something which I personally think we could have done already, which is to develop prefabricated housing units over part of the site that you're now planning to look at in totality. But if we are going to look at it in totality and spend the best part of £500,000, it does seem to me that you should be taking the entire council with you, approaching it slightly more slowly and making sure that we are actually getting a better view of what should be done and what shouldn't. So I'm not against in principle, but I'm very unhappy at the way we're rushing tonight to actually take a quick decision, when I think a much more serious debate in overview and scrutiny would have actually been helpful. I just do not understand why you're bringing it to Cabinet tonight and recommending to council without any input from your scrutiny committee.
Okay, thank you very much indeed for your comments, John. If I can move forward, Councillor Cortell, please.
Thank you, Chair. I have to start by agreeing with Councillor John Barnes that this should have gone through Overview and Scrutiny Committee first. We need to have a culture of making Overview and Scrutiny Committee more relevant. However, the main points I'd like to make are that I totally support and welcome the location of the new town hall complex, its cost neutrality and its environmental benefit. All these are excellent. I have some questions, however, about staff well-being. With the construction of flats and the influx of additional organisations, will the staff have less space than previously? Will they need to hot desk? And if so, will they be happy with that? Are they still keen to work from the office only 1 to 3 days a week, as per the 9-month-old staff survey when lockdown was relatively new? I'm just posing some questions for consideration, and I look forward to the replies from Ben or yourself, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you for those points, Paul. I think they're rather detailed points, which I think will come out as we go forward. Am I not right in saying, Ben, that we will be looking at the overall plan of the new premises there, how we would incorporate the benefits for staff? Is that something that we want to go into the detail at this stage on? Perhaps not.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, Chair. I mean, with regards to the staff, I think it's now very much become ingrained in our culture to do a rolling survey. So we're going to be making sure that staff are kept engaged in both this process and understanding what the staff needs are going forward. In terms of the actual development, as I said before, whilst we've done some high level appraisal options on sort of quantum and types of flat and accommodation that could be built on the side, this is without consideration for a whole range of factors which will be part of the next phase of design. And so a lot of Councillor Cortell's earlier questions not really answerable at this stage. What I would say is obviously that we will be seeking to phase the development in an appropriate way that makes it possible to retain a functioning council throughout that period. So just to sort of give reassurance that we're not going to put staff into a position where they've got nowhere to work and b overcrowded and uncomfortable accommodation throughout that period as well.
Thank you, Ben. Malcolm. Now I invite Councillor Paul Osborne.
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, I think Councillor Cortell is right to raise the issues. All I will assure members is that what we will do through this process is follow our normal consultative process, which is involving the unison and staff side in discussions with regards to this. I mean, will they have less space? Will they have to hot desk? They will be discussions we will have in due course. But I think what we have seen with this process is people are working differently, and some people are happy to work differently. What we have not done at any point in time during this is saying, we haven't said people have to work from home. What we've said is people should work from home unless they can't. The reasons that people can't are not necessarily reasons that are anything to do with me, because they could be personal reasons, it could be a variety of reasons. So our aim through this whole process and through anything we do is to provide staff with an efficient and effective and a pleasant workplace for them to attend. So those questions are quite valid to raise. I just think they need to come in later on in the process, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Paul, for those comments. Councillor Paul Osborne.
Thank you much, Chairman. Yeah, I'm tentatively in favour of this. I'm all up for a fuel efficient building, somewhere warm, same efficient, everything else. I live in one, to be honest. so that's, I can see the point. I've got a couple of points, and it's, and this is sort of, there's some practicalities here as well, and without the sort of benefit of any sort of a overall sort of scheme idea, then it's sort of almost difficult to know what the score is. If you read that, you think, well, everything else is going except for the original town hall building with the front office and the chamber, which is fine. So everything else goes, because I think they're only essentially repurposed houses to start with. My question would be, Amherst Road, does that go as well? Where are you going to put everybody when you knock down the sort of the planning department area? Where does everybody go? Do they go into Amherst Road and everybody comes back over? Housing's got to be built. We've got to have parking, or we could possibly have less parking if people are going to be using trains or whatever, or working from home. But then I've got that's the sort of practical questions which get covered off at some stage by someone. I've got a problem here on this. We've got £250,000 for the development of housing projects, which Cabinet approved in February. Is that in addition to or included in the 460 for this overall project? That was a question, and I'm slightly concerned as to the first recommendation. One is a recommendation to council, which is fine. It's a big job. Recommend to council. The second one is resolved for the head of service to enter into delegate authority with contracts. So why is it resolved if council is only a fortnight away? Why would that be? Why would resolution 2 be resolved if, to a degree, if council's got to approve the funding for 460,000 in the first one, or is that the 250,000 that was approved in February?
Chair, if I may, I could answer both those questions for Councillor Osborne. Okay, starting with your first question, Councillor, about the 250,000. So that was allocated. It was actually allocated under the previous administration back in February 2019. And that was about providing a budget to do a full review of council-owned sites. You may remember, Councillor, there was a list provided at the time of a whole bunch of different sites that council already owned, and the land to the rear of the town hall was one of them. Of that £250,000, we used about £15,000 to do a high-level feasibility study and appraisal. So we got in some architects who, did some work-up designs and said, okay, you could fit this here, fit this there, that sort of thing, which has sort of led on to this approach where we've said, okay, we know this works in principle. We're going to need some money to actually work out how that's going to look and take that forward. In terms of the recommendations, simply a process thing. Obviously, any budget request over £250,000 has to go to full council for permission to be included. But it's Cabinet authority that's delegated, being asked to delegate to myself in order to enter into the necessary contracts and so on and so forth. So it's merely a process issue that Cabinet delegates the authority to do the decision bit, whereas the budget request has to go up to full council. I hope that covers it off, and Malcolm or Louise might want to step in if I've sort of got that slightly wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's how it works.
Okay, are we satisfied with that, Paul? Malcolm, are you going to make an observation as to?
No, I think Ben has summed it up quite well, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Okay, we've got two other members. Thank you, Paul. Two other members wishing to make comments. If we can just deal with those two, please, and then we'll get Kevin to sum up. That's Councillor Maynard.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. I mean, it's certainly to amplify the points that have just been made by Councillor Osborne. And whilst one obviously would want to uphold the constitution of the council, it does seem rather odd that here you're being asked to resolve that you enter the contract when in fact the council haven't considered the financial side of things. So it does seem, does it not, that the cart is before the horse? Because how it's like saying, I'm going to have that car in the showroom, but I'm not going to tell you what you're going to pay for it. It's a bizarre way of bringing the paper in front of members. And it does appear as if councillors that aren't on cabinet aren't being given the opportunity to properly debate the pros and cons of what's in front of them. And the reference has already been made by a number of members that this should have gone to scrutiny committee first. And I think, quite frankly, it should have done, because at the moment, you've got a scheme that's going to cost an extremely large sum of money. Frankly, personally speaking, I don't buy into this cost neutrality whatsoever. I think you're being incredibly disingenuous to suggest that this could ever be cost neutral. And I think that, quite frankly, we are talking about, just to talk about designs for the scheme of nearly £500,000. This needs to be thoroughly debated by every member of this authority. And what we're doing at the moment is exactly the opposite. So if members of the scrutiny committee are minded to call in the second part of the agenda item 11.2, I'd be minded to support that, because quite clearly it does appear that the cart is before the horse. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. Thank you for your comments, Carl. And no doubt, Ben, you'll take those away, and we can identify.
I mean, if it helped, Chair. I mean, we could reword the recommendation to say subject to council approval, and that way it gives. Because I mean, otherwise, after council approves or not, then I would have to come back to cabinet for delegated authority. Happy to change the recommendation so it reads subject to council approval of the budget, the head of service of transformation, so on and so on and so forth. And that means that then the decision rests in the hands of council to make the facilitate the budget or not. At which point, if the budget is facilitated, then delegated authority is already in place to progress the scheme, rather than necessitating a second cabinet paper.
Okay.
Through you, though, Chairman, why would you shy away from a debated scrutiny?
I don't think we are shying away from it.
Well, you are, aren't you? Because it's not in front of the scrutiny committee, so that's exactly.
Excuse me. You know, if we could identify, I'm sure this will come before scrutiny. It will be looked at by all members. But we are where we are with this evening. And thank you for your comments, which I know.
Chair, as a member of scrutiny.
Excuse me, Councillor Mooney, can you, Councillor Mooney, can you just please, there's somebody else that wants to speak before you. Once you've spoken, Councillor Maynard, can you please switch your camera off and mute? Sorry. Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Kirby Green, I think you were next in line. I did. And I will then take one more speaker, which we give you Councillor Mooney before we move on with this. Thank you.
Thank you. I was only going to make two comments. One is that I again, like Councillor Maynard, it's all very well to shout out about it being cost neutral, but I mean, there's no evidence of that. That's just sort of we can all say that. The question is, will it actually be cost neutral? So it'd be interesting to put a marker down now and look in however many years' time and see whether it is. So I'd like to put that marker down now. Second thing is, I too have been involved in this sort of thing in the past. And this analysis here, this option analysis on page 87, it looks pretty obvious to me that the person that wrote this wanted to reach number 4 as the conclusion and work backwards. That is not the sort of analysis that I would normally see in the private sector for this sort of work. And thirdly, I just make the comment that I wonder what the residents of Bexhill think if we're spending £14 million on redeveloping the town hall and we're not going to pursue a leisure centre.
I don't think though we're comparing like with like there. We're looking at something here which is commercial regeneration. It's providing housing. It's a building that's 124 years old that really is going to be costing an absolute fortune. You know, the leisure centre is a completely different proposition altogether, and I think you realise that, Eleanor. But if I can just invite Councillor Mooney to speak now, and then Councillor Dixon, and that will complete the debate on this item.
Thank you very much indeed, Chair, and I do apologise for butting in there, but I was concerned, and I would like this to be called to scrutiny, and I would hope that Councillor Maynard and Councillor Osborne would join me in doing so, because I'm not against the principle, but I would stand foursquare with my two colleagues that this should have gone to scrutiny. It's big money and it's a big decision and it's a great idea, maybe, but let's all be in it together. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Well, that's something which you're able to do. I was expecting that to happen. I don't see that's a problem at all. I think we've concluded the debate on this. Kevin, if you could please sum up.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. And pick up a couple of points certainly about post-COVID. I think post-COVID we need flexibility in our workspace, and this initial proposal will give flexibility in our workplace. Over 60% has already been mentioned of our staff want to continue to work from home from the survey we had earlier, and maybe only come in 1 or 2 days a week. If we redevelop the town hall complex, it means we can have that flexibility in our workspace to allow working on some days of the week, all days of the week, or none. It also gives us the opportunity to rent out some of our space in both the town hall complex and Hamhurst Road. We need better working space for our staff and modern facilities, which we haven't got at the moment. And whatever we do, we've got to provide that at some point and bring the working conditions for our staff into the 21st century. Currently, the heating is on or off. There's no difference in between the two. And so in the summer, it's far too hot, and in the winter, it's either far too hot or far too cold, depending whether someone's put the heating on. Paragraph 22 is very, very important on the environmental impacts of the building. We have to improve that in our commitment to become carbon neutral. And of course, one big caveat that hasn't been mentioned yet is this is subject to planning. An independent planning process, of course, will happen with this. And obviously that could change what we intend to do. And Ben has been given the project of making this cost neutral overall, and that is what he will have to do. Otherwise, we cannot afford this project to go ahead. It has to be cost neutral. So, Chairman, with I'll read out the change recommendation. That for the recommendation to Council is that this scheme be included onto the Council's capital programme, and a budget of 460,000 be agreed to progress detailed designs for the future of the Town Hall complex in Bexhill. And subject to Council approval, it be resolved that the Head of Service Acquisitions, Transformation and Regeneration be granted delegated authority to procure the services required and enter into contracts as necessary for the completion of detailed designs. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. If there's someone that would second this proposition, thank you. Is there someone to second, Christine?
I'll second if you wish.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope that basically that amendment there will satisfy members who have spoken this evening. It's nice to have a comment that we're all in it together. Thank you for that, Martin, and I hope that will continue going forward, because we can only complete what this administration wants to do for the benefit of our residents by working together, and I'm very encouraged to hear your comments. Thank you for that. Louise, if we can now go to a vote, including that amendment that has been read out.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Okay, members, please respond with for, against or abstain. Councillor Bayliss.
Yeah, for.
Councillor Brereton.
For.
Councillor Byrne.
For.
Councillor Dixon.
For.
Councillor Field.
For.
And Councillor Oliver.
For.
That's carried, Chairman.
Thank you very much for that. If we could invite back the members who were outside the room, and we'll push on to the next agenda item. And thank you for everyone who made comments this evening. I think all these comments will be noted and taken forward by Ben to the next stage that we will see full debate and support for this project going forward. Right. Is Jonathan, are they back in? Yep.
I'm just letting them back in now, Chairman.
Excellent. Okay. Are we ready to go on? Hazel, are you back in?
Just bear with me a moment.
You're all there? Yep. I think we're all presented. Yep. Well done, everyone. Good. Okay. If we can just move into agenda item. Now, let me just get this right. I think we're taking an agenda item 13 first, which is the renewal of the Edgerton Park Lease tennis courts to the Bexhill Tennis Club. Yeah. If Joe, are you going to present this report, Joe?
Yes, that's right.
To see you. If there are any detailed questions that are here, we do have Anna Evett and Rebecca Owen joining the meeting, and I'm sure they will be able to support any questions are here that if Joe required them to do so. But I think it's really important also that we do see officers who have drafted these reports at Cabinet, because I think that they've done an excellent job in bringing the reports together, which has then been subject to quite a bit of discussion. Joe, over to you, please.
Thank you, Chair. To introduce the report for you, as members may be aware, that Edgerton Park has 8 tennis courts, 7 of which are available for tennis. Bexhill Tennis Club is a long-established organisation and has 85 members, including a junior section. The proposal within the report is that the club presently leases Court 4, as it's named, and they wish to switch that to another court, Court 5. The reasons being that it's close to their clubhouse and terrace. And in order to do that, we need to advertise the intention to the public in line with the relevant acts, and that will then allow the club to switch the courts over and to be lease them as they have done for some time. So a procedural report really, and happy to take questions if there are any.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I don't think we're going to be flooded with questions on this, Joe. As you say, it's a procedural report that just confirms where we are at the moment for the tennis club, the way that they keep the area very neat, very tidy, well-organised group. It's a pleasure to have them on board. If we are at where we are, I'll invite Councillor Jay Brewerton to move this report.
I would like to move this report. Thank you for your hard work, Joe, on this.
Thank you for that. And have we got a second for this? Hazel, I believe you were going to second this.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, we're happy to second.
This is agenda item 13, which if we can then go to a vote, please, Louise.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Bayliss.
4.
Councillor Brewerton.
4.
Councillor Byrne.
4.
Councillor Dixon.
4.
Councillor Field.
4.
Councillor Oliver.
4.
Councillor Prochak.
4.
Councillor Tempe.
4.
And Councillor Vinehall.
4.
That's carried, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed, and thank the officers for just bringing this tidy report together, which has gone through very quickly. Thank you. So we've got the agenda item 12, which will be the last item on the agenda this evening. This is the introduction of fees for tennis court bookings at Edgerton Park, and I think that's the key word here. Joe, if you could just lead this forward, because I think it's something we did trial last year, much to the appreciation of those that were wanting to play tennis on a regular basis.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, indeed. There was a trial last year. This again refers to the tennis courts at Edgerton Park, of which there are 7. And the trial last year allowed for the courts to be booked online. Using an online system, obviously, that initiated by a third-party contractor called Clubs Park. The cost to the council of maintaining and managing these courts presently isn't met by the any fee arrangement that's in place. The current arrangement also doesn't really provide us with much data, which is useful in terms of the use of the courts for us when forming bids, etc., for funding and the like, and also for our own use in terms of understanding the popularity of the sport locally. And a more user-friendly system, it's felt, is needed to help facilitate a greater use of the courts and generate some income, it's hoped, to try and offset the costs of managing those courts. So it's proposed that from April, a 6-month time-limited trial be trialled, and where we introduce a fee of £1.50 per half an hour, for those who choose to book, crucially. If you don't wish to book, then you can just turn up, and there being that quantity of courts, it's, you know, I suppose there'll be the odd occasion where they're all booked, but it's felt that that's unlikely. But those who do wish to be guaranteed a game can absolutely take that advantage. It's important to recognise the costs which that are mentioned in the report, and of the system itself being modest, but the maintenance costs are also included within the report. The intention is not to have this system in place in the winter, and that's, yeah, that's underlined. If you don't book, you are able to use the courts for free. To compare locally, it might be helpful that the costs in Eastbourne are £6 to £8 per hour, and in Mid Sussex are £6.55 per hour, just as a comparator. So the £3 an hour is a relatively modest cost. There's another element to highlight, is that in terms of our ability to control the level of coaching that goes on the tennis courts, and to an extent anyway, try and monitor and manage who is coaching on the courts, is this system allows us to for people to have to name themselves if they are a coach, and it allows us to do some cursory checks on their, you know, on their professional standing, etc. So that's helpful too. So yes, I hope that's explains itself, but happy to take questions on the report.
Thank you very much for that, Joe. And I think it's interesting the way we have developed Edgerton Park Courts. With those that are not sure what it is, we've got a doubling up of a pickleball court, which is constantly in use when there's available to do so, and also an informal football kickabout area, which the walk football, the over whatever age they are, 60 something, get out there again when everything is permitting. So we've tried to generate this activity there for all persons within this area. We've got one or two questions. Right, just excuse me, Paul, Councillor Paul Osborne, was that an old question that I overlooked, or was that a new question?
No, Chairman, that was a historic one, I'm afraid.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, Councillor John Barnes.
Yes, no doubt Joe has got the experience, but two things occurred to me. One is how this is going to be policed, because you could get a clash. And the other one, and it's a genuine question, is why you're charging for the half hour rather than the hour, because as a tennis player, no longer, but one who used to play quite a lot, I just don't think you'll get a reasonable game in half an hour. So are we making it a bit complex by saying you need to pay twice to get an hour?
There might be dark clouds looming, John. Perhaps that's the reason behind it. I'm not sure, but perhaps you can just cover that one off, Joe, please.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's really nothing stopping us from using hourly, slots if we wish to. I mean, part of the reason it being a 6-month trial, it's a sort of test and see how things go. In terms of policing it, I think there's an expectation that it'll be self-policing, but again, something we'll monitor and ensure that we make efforts to gather feedback and listen to yourselves and the community directly in terms of how that's, and the club as well, how things are working out. So yes, both fair points, Councillor, and something we can certainly take away and consider.
Perhaps someone would want to pay for an hour and a half.
Very well said. Yeah, there you go.
90 minutes, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, John. Councillor Brian Drayson.
Thank you, Chair. Two of those points have just been taken by Councillor Barnes. The only other one was presumably there'll be a sign up telling people who've turned up that if a booker turns up, they have to give way, because I see there's problems in policing it. And at the very least, we need a sign that says bookers take preference.
Yep, I'll take that away as well. And I'm sure it's being considered, but just in case not, I'll take that away, Councillor. Thank you.
Yep, thank you for that good point, Brian. Councillor Paul Cortell.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, as a former tennis player, I declare a non-pecuniary interest in this. I agree with John Barnes that, Councillor Barnes, that most games of tennis take at least an hour, and I would take the view that they take on average an hour and a half, including a warm-up. However, I'm delighted that those residents who are unable to pay fees for a tennis court or a pickleball court or a football kickabout will be able to turn up and play, provided there's a spare unbooked court to play on. That was very much my bottom line in supporting this. And in view of that, I'm happy to support the proposal.
Thank you for your kind comments on that, Paul. And it's great to see the place actively used, and hopefully that won't be in some weeks' time where various things will permit that to happen. Were there any other comments? No, I don't think there were. Jay, I know you've worked alongside Joe and officers just to tidy this report up.
Absolutely. And I just want to reassure Councillor Barnes and Councillor Drayson and Councillor Courtell, my children and I are very keen tennis players, and in the good old days where we could just go anywhere we wanted and meet up with whoever we wanted, when we wanted, we used to travel around East Sussex and Kent areas and down in Devon. There's multiple authorities across the UK that are utilising this app system. The key benefits are it guarantees the court is yours for a period of time. Most people are incredibly polite. If they have been having a knockabout, knowing full well there is a booking system in operation and you've turned up obviously to play your session, they're generally very good and, will politely leave, or wait, for the term. I've occasionally had to book courts for 2.5 hours and 3 hours, because of the children. So, the flexibility of it is really good in that respect. The income generation from it is incredibly modest, primarily because you're paying for the technology, but the income that is generated from this scheme will actually be going back into the refurbishments of the actual court. So, all in all, I'm very much in full support of this actual scheme. I think it's about time we had it. And I'm grateful for all the hard work that Joe and his team have put together on actually ensuring that we can actually go forward with this. So I've been a very keen supporter of different schemes over the years. I was the one who badgered you back in 2016, 2017 for the free tennis for all scheme, which we implemented and we're still continuing with. So I do want to remind people that you will be able to play tennis this year with your children. Or if you're learning yourself, we've had people, 60, 70 people turn up to actually utilise a court in Egerton Park and be coached by some incredible people that we actually have on board with the scheme. So please do attend one of those sessions if you get the opportunity this summer. If we all get the opportunity this summer, I'll be there.
Excellent. I think that given the opportunity this summer, there should be perhaps a members' veterans tennis tournament. There seem to be an awful lot of players that like to play tennis, so perhaps this is something that we could consider. A few heads shaking the wrong way, but thank you for that, Jay. Have we got someone to second this, Hazel? I believe Councillor Timby.
Yeah, Councillor Timby. Thank you. Yeah, happy to second.
Thank you. And if we can go to a vote, Louise, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Bayliss.
4.
Councillor Burton.
4.
Councillor Byrne.
4.
Councillor Dixon.
4.
Councillor Field.
4.
Councillor Oliver.
4.
Councillor Prochak.
4.
Councillor Tempe.
4.
And Councillor Vinehall.
4.
That's unanimous and carried, Chairman.
Excellent. Well, thank you everyone for attending this evening. We've closed the meeting now at 20:53. Thank you for some lively debate and some thoughtful comments that came forward, which I think will all be taken forward in where we are and where we're going on some of these items this evening. Thank you and good night.